Welcome everyone to Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership for April. We have our Philanthropic Impact webinar series today in partnership with State Street Corporation and Mass Mentoring Partnership. My name is Dan Horgan. I'm a corporate partnerships consultant with Mentor and will help facilitate today's session along with our panelists. I just want to say first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to today's webinar. The Philanthropic Impact webinar series is really designed for corporations, foundations, and individual donors, as well as those that are working in partnership to advance the youth mentoring field. And what we hope to do through these various webinar series is to advance effective practices, partnerships, and programs in a way that really provides tangible advice, tangible resources for people to be able to apply to the work that they're doing or that they aspire to do. So I know in our session today we've got some great content and some great advice and resources that we're going to share. Just to get us started in terms of just a few operational things, if you have any questions at all over the course of today's session, feel free to type those into the chat box and we'll be able to monitor those questions, and we have saved time at the end of our session for Q&A, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. If we don't get to all of those questions, we'll circle back afterwards and provide you with a response or get you the information that you're looking for in regards to your question or your request. And then other than that, just to remind everybody who is listening in today, so everybody is on mute just to maintain the best quality of sound for today's session. And we are recording today's session so that we can make it available to attend along with our slides for the session. I'm really excited. In addition to facilitating today's session, we've got two fantastic presenters from State Street, Regina McNally, the Vice President of Corporate Citizenship, and Richard Curtis, the Vice President of Global Human Resources, which I'm going to be turning it over to them in a little bit. And then joining Regina and Richard, we also have Marty Martinez from Mass Mentoring. He's the President and the CEO of Mass Mentoring based in Boston, Massachusetts. So before we turn over into the main content for today's session, for those that are new to Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, I just wanted to spend a minute or two giving you a little bit of a background context. Mentor is celebrated over 25 years of being around to really increase the quality and the quantity of youth mentoring across the country. We do that through raising public awareness, developing and delivering resources, including this type of technical assistance, such as our webinar series, and really promoting quality youth mentoring programs based on the latest research and based on the content that we're hearing from practitioners on the front line of the youth mentoring field. In order to really mobilize as many people as we can in a quality mentoring way, it really requires us to work across sectors. So working in education, business, community, philanthropy, and so forth, that's what it takes for us to really advance the Mentor mission, and is what has enabled us to really be ranked as one of America's top performing 100 nonprofit organizations. That national network is made up of lots of different partnerships at a national level as well as the local level. Many of them you see on the screen, plus many, many others. But different types of organizations representing various geographies, types of mentoring programs, whether they're traditional one-on-one relationships that are community-based, whether they're school-based mentoring programs or virtual mentoring programs. There's a wide variety of youth mentoring initiatives out there, and we seek to, again, enhance the quality and the quantity of these programs. We also have our own local mentoring partnership network. So we have 26 mentoring affiliates located across the country, as you can see on the map here. And those regional or statewide mentoring partnerships really focus on providing technical assistance to mentoring programs within their region or within their state, raising awareness around the importance of youth mentoring, and then really mobilizing and serving as a convener to bring new partners to the table to close the mentoring gap. One of the key partners in that process is certainly working with corporations. And so you can see on the screen that Mentor, as well as our mentoring partnerships across the country, have forged partnerships with all sorts of industries, all sorts of companies that are based in a variety of geographies, a variety of size companies, ranging from Nike to Bank of America, Altria, 3M, Deloitte, EY, a wide variety, again, of partnerships that are advancing diverse youth mentoring programs within their companies and in partnership with others. So that really brings us, in mobilizing all of these partners around the table and around the field of youth mentoring, Recently, we continue to monitor and recently put out a research report that looked at the specific need of mentoring. And what we've identified through that research is that 1 in 3 young people in America today are growing up without a mentor. So that is really the mentoring gap, if you think of the North Star, that we are trying to close that particular mentoring gap. What we know in terms of the impact that mentoring can have on young people's lives is based and rooted in lots and lots of research through the years. But recently we published a report called The Mentoring Effect, which was the first report of its kind that really went straight to the source and asked young people specifically to share what impact being in a mentoring experience had on them in their own lives. And what we found was 55% of them were more likely to enroll in college, 78% were more likely to volunteer in their communities, more than twice as likely to say that they held a leadership position in a club or a sports team, and probably one of my favorite outcomes of the data was that 90% of the respondents who had a mentor said that they are interested in becoming mentors themselves. So you can sort of see the rippling effect. Not only are we helping young people change the trajectory of their lives and put them on a path towards success, but we're also inspiring and empowering them to step up and mentor peers and younger peers in the process as well. So in regards to today's session and really being able to spotlight an incredible example of cross-sector partnership, of a company stepping up and really taking on a leadership role in partnership with a local mentoring partnership in Massachusetts, it really is exciting for me to be able to introduce you to, again, Regina McNally, who's the Vice President of State Street Corporate Citizenship, and joining her is Richard Curtis from State Street's Global Human Resources team and Marty Martinez from the Mass Mentoring Partnership. So without further ado, Regina, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to get us started by sharing a little bit about State Street and your overall employee engagement strategy.
Sure. Thanks so much, Dan, and thank you for providing us with this platform to share our story today. So as Dan mentioned, my name is Regina, and I work here in the Corporate Citizenship Department at State Street, and I am responsible for our Global Employee Volunteer Program. And if you're not familiar with State Street, we are celebrating our 225th anniversary this year, so we've been around for a while. Our headquarters is here in Boston, where we're located, and we are a financial services institution, so we're completely B2B. We don't have branches. We did start out as a retail bank, but haven't been for many years. And we have employees around the globe, so we have about 34,000 employees worldwide. A good chunk, though, still here in our headquarters region. And our employee engagement strategy has morphed quite a bit over the years. Our State Street Foundation focuses almost exclusively on funding workforce development. So in conjunction with that, our employee engagement model is really around an open choice platform where we allow employees and encourage employees to volunteer around causes that they truly care about, while also providing them opportunities with the organizations that we support through our foundation. So our foundation focus over the years has narrowed, as I mentioned, and one of the ways that it has expressed this narrowing is through a new program called our Boston Wins program that we're excited to talk to you about today. So rather than me go on talking to you about Boston Wins, we actually just released a brand new video, a very short video about Boston Wins. And so what I'm going to do is ask you to take a look at that. You will see on your screen there is the link Dan just posted the link to the video, or you can copy and paste right on that title slide, the link. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to go ahead over to that page and view the video, and when it's done, we will come back together and talk about what you saw.
All right, so we certainly appreciate everybody's flexibility. We find that the quality of the video viewing, if you can pull it up on your own screen, is much better than us integrating it into this system. So thank you so much for taking the time to go over and view that video. Regina, I'm wondering if you can share, based on the video that everyone just watched, if you could share just some additional context on the Boston Wins example, building off of the video.
Sure, thanks, Dan. Happy to. So I hope you found that useful. So Boston Wins is really unique for us in a couple of ways. One, in the sense that it is this large multi-year grant that we're making to these 5 organizations, and that's something that we have not done before. Also, really just in the way that we are having to bring all of our resources together across State Street to affect the outcomes that we are looking to make in this program. And so I'm going to turn it over to Richard in a couple of minutes. He's going to talk about the structure that we've had to put in place, but I really just wanted to talk a little bit more about the concept and the path of what we're looking for. So we had a lot of fantastic partners in this space before that were doing great work, but what we found was missing was the alignment between the partners, and so there would be gaps between the work they were doing, or there would be overlap in the work that they were doing, and because they really weren't working together, we just found that it wasn't as efficient as it could be, and what we want to create is this path for students so that they know when they graduate high school, they have a plan all the way through credentialing, all the way through post-secondary and into a job, whether that be at State Street or another company. And so if you can go to the next slide, Dan, it's really about working together as a network with State Street being one of the players, but really only one of the players at the table, coming together and figuring out how can we best solve this puzzle of getting students through school, through the training that they need in order to get that substantial job at the end. And so we've really kind of taken away all of our old notions of how you do that and brought lots of new players to the table, and we're working so closely as well with the Boston Public School System, with the university systems here, as well as with our executives and our employees here in the company. So if you can go to the next slide, the thing I wanted to talk about a little bit here is really just some of the things that we've put in place besides mentoring. We're going to go pretty deep into the mentoring here in a minute, but I'm responsible for employee engagement, and so we've really looked at what can we do besides the obvious to work with these 5 organizations to help them in ways that we may not have thought of before. So some of the things that we're doing are we're looking to build capacity for these organizations. So with this influx of cash, all of these organizations are necessarily looking to build capacity, whether that be locally here in Boston or throughout their footprints. And that means hiring new staff. And when you hire new staff, that means you're promoting people into managerial roles who've not been there before. And so what we found that we were hearing from all 5 partner organizations is that they didn't have the ability to provide this new manager training that was really desperately needed by employees who had never been in a manager position before. So one of the things we're currently building out is looking to utilize the skill sets and training mechanisms that we have here at State Street for our employees, and how can we bring those to these organizations in like a knowledge sharing way. Another thing is putting executives on all of the boards of these organizations so that we can help with strategy. We do certainly do regular volunteering as well, so where these organizations have built-in volunteer programs, whether it be filling care packages, mock interviewing, things like that, we're certainly sending employees out. And then we've also built an in-house employee resource group where employees who want to be able to participate in activities with these 5 organizations can really dig deep and learn more and get involved. So trying to think outside the box, trying to bring all of our resources together besides just the financial in order to make this successful.
That's great, Regina. It sounds like in the context of building partnerships both externally as well as internally, Richard, it sounds like your role has really been critical from a workforce development standpoint to the Boston Wins model. And so I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about your role and how you see workforce development layering into the Boston Wins program.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, my role at State Street is I'm the Vice President of Workforce Development within the Human Resources area of State Street. And really my main focus is to create and develop future pipelines of talent into the organizations. My team's focus is really to create applications from a non-traditional pipelines, which we see the Boston urban youth being part of, to traditional entry-level and mid-level positions. So existing relationships that we've had with our community-based organizations and academic institutions have been enhanced from this WINS program. This way we've been able to have a more of a career focus than just a community focus as we're looking at that talent and really having that pathway to get to that next point, or in my case it's to get to the employment. As Regina had mentioned, it's really looking from that high school to career with college in the middle sometimes. Sometimes it's with one of our training partners that we already have in existence. So we approach these existing programs with looking at new relationships and how they intertwine. Besides the internal of our partners working together, the 5 partners, we're also looking at who do they touch and how we can bring them all together in order to achieve a common goal. I was lucky to be involved with the vetting process of the WINS partners, and 2 of them shown on the video and on the slides we already had a relationship with on the talent acquisition side. That's the Europe Organization and Private Industry Council. And being on the talent acquisition side of the Human Assets Division that you see on the slide, our focus has been really to hire that 1,000 hires from the alum of one of the WINS partners. So here we enhance the relationship with every organization that touched the WINS strategy, and especially the partners that I had mentioned that we already had a relationship. Each of the programs mentioned also have an internship component, where the enhancements piloted included a higher level touch point, including providing mentorships. So mentorship was fairly new. We had been doing many of these programs, internship programs, for many years, including the PIC program, which is the high school program, which I'll talk about in a little while, for 35 years. But it's really been just bring them on, have them do their work during the summer or during the school year, depending on the program, and then saying goodbye to them without any kind of connection or any kind of support while we're there. So we did pilot a college-level internship program as almost a trial to the WINS announcement on the college side, really targeting the Boston Public School alum who are already in college. But then we took it to the next level, and our pilot with reference today is for the high school program with the Private Industry Council. So the Private Industry Council is a separate organization that brings together the Boston Public School individuals with a internship component and a support unit throughout the year as we go forward. So we've tried to insert all of the factors, working with our financial assets team, and we do meet on a regular basis in order to make sure that we're in sync with the hiring initiatives that we're working on, along with the financial support that's coming from the various other parts of State Street organization.
Richard, I just want to applaud. I mean, it sounds like you've really taken an holistic approach and really thinking about the pathway to career and thinking about not only the training and support that's needed along the way for the young people, including internships and hiring opportunities, but then also on the other side of the equation, ensuring that employees of State Street are prepared to serve as the best guides, the best managers, the best support system for the young people in the program. So sort of switching gears, I'm curious, Regina, if you can talk a little bit now about the role that mentoring plays and into the Boston WINS program and sort of connect the dots between employee engagement and the workforce development components.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. So we, as I mentioned, have a pretty robust employee engagement and volunteer program here at State Street. And we certainly still are involved in a lot of the traditional volunteer programs where people are going out and doing things such as cleanups and hands-on projects. But over the past several years, we've really looked to develop further our skills-based program. And so you'll see on the slide on your screen right now that we have taken a pretty serious look at the way that we see volunteerism being tied into talent development. And so what we do is internally meet with groups of employees and groups of managers and talk about how they can work to build the skills of themselves and their employees through different kinds of skills-based volunteerism. And so, we're looking to bring a lot of these concepts, and some I already talked about, to the WINS program. But one of those things is mentoring. And here at State Street, mentoring is something that is just part of our fabric. So both internal mentoring, where we have senior level folks mentoring more junior level employees, both locally and on a cross-geographic level, but also external mentoring. And traditionally, most of our community mentoring had been done through partner organizations. So we would match employees, for example, with a Big Brother, Big Sister program or a similar program where the mentoring program owned the matching and training portion of that. And we still do a lot of that. But to Richard's point, we realized that there was a gap when it came to the WINS organizations that did not have built-in mentoring programs. And we really felt like the benefits of mentoring are so huge that as we're bringing these youth in, we could make a greater impact in their lives while also building the skills of our employees if we embedded mentoring into the program. So it was something from the get-go that we had been thinking about that we wanted to do, but what we realized is we did not have the expertise in-house to build our own mentoring program, and we didn't want to have to rebuild the wheel there. So that's where we looked to our partner at Mass Mentoring to help us with building our own program so that we got it right.
Great, Regina, that's a great segue. I want to bring Marty into the conversation. And Marty, if you don't mind, maybe share a little bit of context around what Mass Mentoring is all about and the role that you play in helping companies like State Street with initiatives like Boston Win.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dan. Mass Mentoring is a statewide organization based in Boston that is the local mentoring partnership that works to advance and grow developmental relationships for all young people in settings that include formal mentoring programs, includes workplace programs, youth sports, in schools, you name it, wherever young people are in relationships with adults. We're there to support it and to be able to grow it. And so Mass Mentoring's role is really a strategy that we call relationships in action, which is to assess the needs that might exist for a program or a partner, build opportunities through training, technical assistance, and knowledge sharing, connect those opportunities, whether it be employees to service opportunities or young people to a program, and then to advocate for those relationships so that all young people have them regardless of where they're at. And so using this model, we are the kind of community partner that works to support initiatives like WINS, but also to support initiatives where someone needs a partner to come in and provide a connection and provide support around the development of a model or the development of training opportunities. In this particular example, we are a longtime partner of State Street. And so we were brought in primarily because we have experience in kind of three main areas. We have experience in how do you ensure that young people are in a quality mentoring relationship? How do you ensure that the adults in those relationships and the young people have tools and resources that they need to be able to connect, tools and resources they need to build conversations and communicate, but also to engage around the work at hand. So our expertise around relationship building on behalf of young people was one reason that we brought into this mix. The second is that we have the ability to not only be a partner around training for adults and young people, but also expertise around program development and design. So when a program like State Street already had done all this amazing work to say this is what this model could look like, they could turn to us as experts in program delivery, program design, to say this might work, this might not work, this is what will work in a corporate setting, or what might work with a specific population. And then the third bucket that made us unique to this opportunity is that we are really involved in employee engagement. So as Regina mentioned, one of the drivers to be able to engage employees in a variety of different volunteer or service opportunities, our expertise is to take those opportunities that might exist and connect them to the right employee who might be interested in a certain kinds of role, whether it's supervising a student or whether it is serving as a mentor for a student in a capacity that might exist in this kind of a program. Mass mentoring was brought in to sort of support the mentoring element and the relationship building element, primarily because of our longstanding relationship with State Street, but really speaking to the point that Regina made, that the goal was to not recreate the wheel. There were already great things happening in terms of summer interns and year-long placements and students that were working at State Street, but really them turning to us saying, help us implement a strategy that ensures young people have what they need in terms of relationships, in terms of the right kind of connections with employees, in terms of the right kinds of things that will help them be most successful. One of the pieces you may have seen in the video, our participants may have seen, talked about making sure that these young people had the tools and resources they needed to be successful. That's part of why this collaborative was created. At Mass Mentoring, we would advocate that those tools and resources are relationships with adults. And State Street knows that well and believes that same thing. So as a corporate partner, they brought in someone who could help them develop those tools and resources in collaboration with them to ensure that young people not only were getting skills, not only were getting an opportunity to work with a great corporate partner, but was also given the opportunity to connect with adults who were employed at State Street to be able to make that connection and get that relationship that would be needed so they can fully take advantage of this amazing opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marty. I want to go back to Richard for a second and sort of build off of the three things, Marty, that you outlined that you really bring to this overall initiative in partnership with State Street. And Richard, I want to go back to something you had started to talk about in the partnership that you've had now for 35 years with the Private Industry Council, and really ask you to talk a lot about how did the mentoring overlay into that partnership take that relationship to the next level?
Well, thank you, Dan. It's unbelievable the difference. I've had the fortune between State Street and other employers to be involved with the PIC for almost 20 years. And I've seen, pretty much even at State Street during the earlier years, it was pretty lackluster. A little bit what I explained, that the interns came in, they did their summer assignment and kind of went home from there, and a lot of them did get some great experience as they go. But we figured this is a good opportunity to enhance it. And this enhancement of adding a mentorship component that we did a couple years ago really benefited the mentees, which are the interns, the mentors, who are employees of State Street with the level of engagement that Regina talked about, and of course the line managers that are actually managing these interns on a day-to-day basis. So by adding the mentorship component to PIC, it gave the program really new life and improved level of engagement for the high school interns and everyone mentioned. Many of these mentors had never been associated with the program before. They wanted to, but they didn't have the capacity to host an intern for the summer because of the line of work that they did, but this also gave them the opportunity to become involved. So breaking it down to really those three buckets of why the interns, what we did, and then really looking at the timeline that's highlighted here. For interns, it gave really them a preview of State Street before they started their internship. Before they were oriented, they came in the end of June and they met their manager that day and started the program. For those that have been selected to be part of the mentorship program, they really were introduced to State Street about 6 months beforehand, with the selection process going on in the fall. And then during the winter, we introduced the mentor and the mentee at a meet and greet event and developed team exercises that gave them time to network and have fun together, to really get to know each other. Before the event, we brought them together, the mentees, for an after-school event, and we trained them on how to get the most out of a mentorship relationship. We scheduled the activity each month afterwards, including a job shadow day in March for the mentor. And this is where Mass Mentoring came in so well, is that they were able to give us the assistance of how to train this population. We had seen this population in a different lens of as an employee, but not really as the next step of really looking at their the questions that they should be asking for the mentee as a mentee, the individual, what they should be getting out of that in the way of what is it for them, but how can they give back to the organization. So with these individuals being on board, on day one, now they were familiar with the corporate culture, and they knew someone already. So they had a supporting staff, and they also had a much smoother onboarding. We saw that from the managers coming in because it was less anxiety, because they had a secondary support system versus just their managers that they're going to. I have a quote here that actually a group of mentors mentees had sent to me, and give me 1 minute. It's a blessing, as they say, it's a blessing for me and the other mentees to have been selected to be part of the PIC program with State Street. We enjoy the mentorship, and I believe that the PIC mentoring program is second family to us, as we have spent time with us and given us the opportunity to open our eyes to great possibilities that we didn't know was available. Thank you for your all support and encouragement. So if we're looking to develop that employee that's coming to State Street in the future, we want to have that positive attitude, and that's one benefit from the mentee's point of view. The intern managers now see on the most part, a more confident intern on day one and beyond, given their familiarity with State Street and the intern's career interests. You see, we use the mentors to assist and recommend hiring managers for the mentees during the recruiting process. So once the interns have started with their internship, we found the mentees also reach out to their mentors with questions that they might be too shy to be asked, especially at the beginning of their internship. So they're actually that added support. Managers, thanks to mass mentoring, is also where the managers have also gone through training. A lot of these managers haven't worked with this age group or the diversity of the individuals that we brought up before, so they're able for the mentors to be able to talk to a young individual and be able to talk their language, the technology, the disruptions, and even a preview of the type of background that they're coming from, being urban youth. So this really prepared them so they were more confident in the process at the same time. And of course, the last part that we're talking about is the mentors. They really help the mentees assimilate to the culture, and they've got that extra individual to assist them. They feel more engaged with State Street given their role. Many mentors were former intern managers, or as I said, managers or wannabe managers of the program who do not have the workspace to host an intern. This mentor responsibility allows them to be part of the program through their relationship with a mentee and volunteering for one of our enrichment events that come through on every Friday with this program. Mass mentoring was also so instrumental in assisting us preparing the mentors of how to interact with these young students also. So we really have the three different trainings of being a mentee, mentor, and a hiring manager with all of these programs, all related to that whole engagement of all of the interns. In reference to the Boston Winds, these mentees are possibly future State Street employees. We'd like to think so. So the more positive intern relationship, the bigger chance they will have in returning State Street as their college interns during their summers. We feel that adding the mentorship component to the program increases the level of satisfaction for all parties as you go through. So looking at the timeline presented, we really have that timeline, which was much stronger, much weaker before, but we're really looking at that. And then more importantly, connecting these individuals to one of our WINS partners that will assist them through many times the mentors help to their next stage of going on to college or going to the Year Up organization. So also in the slide you do see that there is one of the Marty's events, as a matter of fact, everyone in red, and it's showing the support even after hours, where we do, as part of our outreach, we do give them the ability to get together on a social event plus in a work event going forward. So we are very big on how we can combine that social aspect of networking, which is very important, because a lot of these individuals will be using their mentor as references going forward, either through a college program for an application, or if going through a program in the way of going into another training program or directly to work. So we found overall that the mentors are giving the right knowledge through the program, and hopefully giving these individuals being interns through the PIC program, a chance for success once they leave the high school confines.
So Richard, I'm going to jump in this and ask Marty, the State Street example with Boston Wins and just the integration of mentoring into some of those existing relationships that have been around for years, like the Private Industry Council, and then layering it into these 5 organizations that they're working with out in the community as well. I'm curious if you're seeing this as a trend among other corporate partners, placing a stronger emphasis on building relationships with young people within the Boston community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what we're seeing, Dan, is that corporate partners understand that placing a student, a high school student, in a corporate setting, whether it's through an internship program or through a summer program or through sort of a year-long sort of placement, requires more than just making a spot available for them and paying them a paycheck. We see more and more corporate partners looking at how do we embed the fact that these young folks, maybe their first opportunity in this setting, maybe the first time that they've experienced this kind of world of corporate work, and how do we invest in them so that they can create a pipeline of employees who will come back and potentially not only come to the company, but connect it better to the community. So we've seen that in workplace programs that are time limited. We've seen them in programs that are trying to expand that reach. We see that a lot in summer jobs. Most corporate partners know that in most big urban cities, there's a big push for summer employment opportunities for teens. And so in many of those summer employment opportunities, we see programs saying, in order to make sure we get the right managers, we get enough folks, we need to place a greater emphasis on the relationships that are being built. And I think it really centers around the notion that, and one of the pieces that I think is critical, is that it has to be intentional. And that's what I think we're seeing many of our corporate partners say now, that we want to intentionally ensure that young people get into relationships. I think at times you can think, well, young people will have a manager and that will just happen. And I think this is a great example with Wins and State Street, where they decided that they wanted to be intentional in that creating these connections and these opportunities for young people to connect with employees with training and support and structured activities that ensured those relationships were built and that the seeds were planted in order for them to grow. And so I think that intentionality has been a big push that we've seen many of our corporate partners take on, and we've seen them attempt to do more to ensure that these relationships get created and not just hope they're happening while the young people work with the employees that they're engaged with.
It's really exciting to hear. I mean, I think, so often any relationship that any of us have in our lives, they all take time and they all take effort. And so being mindful of the fact, particularly when we're building mentoring relationships for young people who, frankly, haven't had a lot of caring adults in their lives and don't have a lot of people that they can turn to as a support system, just the incredible importance of creating that comprehensive approach and recognizing that it's going to take time and there's going to be opportunities along the way to continually learn and perfect the program as it all unfolds. And so, Marty, I'm just sort of a follow-up question for you in terms of seeing this trend with other corporate partners. I'm curious, for companies that are listening to this session who are maybe thinking about for the first time trying to build this type of program and are just at the starting gate, right? What would be your advice to sort of tangibly take that first step and start building out something similar to, or built off of the success elements of the Boston Wins example?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Dan, the couple of the pieces of the advice are really what you heard from folks, from Regina on the phone, for example, and Richard, is that don't do it alone. Don't recreate the wheel and try to do it fresh from your own. There are partners in the community. You saw the map previously. There are many mentoring partnerships, part of Mentors Network, affiliates all across the country that have the ability to support and help an organization or a corporate partner to be able to do this, to be that training arm, to be that thought partner arm, to help be that program development arm, to really ensure that this is happening in a way that is connected to high quality practice. And so one of the main pieces of advice would be to not do it alone and not to recreate the wheel. And then the second piece is to really ensure that that intentionality exists, that we ensure that young people are getting those relationships that they need. One of the things we always say, especially when we're training folks in a corporate setting to mentor young people is that they don't have to be that superstar mentor. They don't have to be that one person that does everything for a young person, but they're part of these web of relationships that young people get engaged in, and they're part of that puzzle. And so making sure employees know that it's accessible, it's supported, but that there's intentionality around it. So I really think corporate partners thinking about who can help us, who can support us, and how do we ensure we set up an environment and a program that ensures that these relationships happen, not just because there's one really great supervisor or one really great guy in one department, but that it really is a systemic approach to ensuring that young people get relationships when they walk into our door, whether it's a corporate or business setting, but that they get engaged in those that way. So those are some of the pieces of advice that I would give to other partners thinking about it.
And Dan, this is Richard. I would also put in that it's to start small. Even for this PIC program that we've been working with many years, we're still not having 100% of all of the students that are associated with the mentorship. We take it 150 of these high school students, and right now we've reached about 50% capacity with the mentors, and each year we will be building as we learn going forward with the goal that that all 150 will have been assigned a mentor in the next year or so. So this is another, as each company is developing and partnering, they should start small and build as they go, because each company will have its own culture and needs in order to build a successful program.
That's great advice, and it's actually a great segue to a question, Regina, I have for you, which is you've obviously spent a lot of time and energy and brought lots of partners to the table to really create a solid infrastructure and through the Boston Wins initiative. And I'm curious, what's next for Boston Wins as you think about the future?
Thanks, Dan. That's a fantastic question. Yeah, I mean, we're still in the thick of it here with our pilot. So it's a 4-year program that we've rolled out, and we are just about exactly at the halfway mark. And we feel like we've had a lot of great successes to date, but there's still a lot to do. I think one of the things I love most about this program is the fact that it really is a multi-win initiative. So, while obviously with the mentor program we're looking to make impact with these young people, and the program that Richard was talking about, I was fortunate enough to be one of the mentors. And just a story about the personal. The girl that I was matched with was the youngest PIC intern last summer. She was 15 years old, and she came into my office, and what I found out right away is that she had not only never been in a corporate setting, neither of her parents worked in a corporate environment, nor did anyone in her extended family. So she was really kind of shell-shocked when she first walked in, because she just didn't have any sense of what to expect. And so for her, having one trusted face before she started in that new role was huge. And I think on the flip side, for our employees who are mentoring, who maybe have only worked with other corporate types, to get that feeling of this, young and excited person coming in the door is really fantastic for them as well. So we're learning all our lessons right now. We're figuring out, how do we scale this? Do we scale this? Where do we go next with this? Is this something that could become, a London Wins or a Hong Kong Wins? And we're not there yet. One thing that's for sure is we will not be sort of getting to our 4-year mark and shutting this off. There's a lot of work being done that will need to be ongoing in order to sustain the impact. And in order to do that, we're just going to have to maintain the relationships that we have, both with the WINS organizations, but also with our other fantastic partners here in Boston, such as Mass Mentoring and Marty, who we rely on for their expertise and their assistance as we're looking to build these programs out and as things grow and change. So we have a lot of options on the table. We're certainly starting to think about what's next. But for now, we're buckled down, and we're looking to meet all of our goals here for our first program.
That's great. So I want to sort of dig into a question regarding the cross-sector partnerships that have been so key to Boston Wins. But I want to encourage everybody who's listening as well to, in the chat box, feel free to type in any questions that you have for today's panelists. Regina, Richard, and Marty are more than willing to answer questions that you have about their program or what advice they have for your particular initiative. So feel free to type those into the chat box while I ask Anybody can take this question, which is really when you think about these cross-sector partnerships across State Street, the community partnerships, mass mentoring's role, can you share a little bit of feedback around what are some of the key lessons that you've learned, both about setting up those cross-sector partnerships, but also about the sustainability of them in keeping them vibrant and focused on continual learning and fulfilling solutions to any challenges that might surface?
I can start with that, Dan. So I think one thing, and Richard alluded to this a little bit, is it's a lot of work. I mean, I think obviously everybody gets why we want to have these sort of cross-sector and cross-departmental projects, but I think when building a program like this, it's really identifying what are the shared goals, because 4 years is a long time, and if you're looking to have people across various departments, across various organizations working on this, week in, week out for 4 years, there really has to be a reason besides I like you and you like me and let's see if we can do something cool together. There really have to be shared goals, and the missions have to align so that everybody knows what's in it for me and my organization. And so I think that's something that we've had to bring back to the forefront multiple times. That being said, it's also we can't do it alone. I mean, I've learned just working internally at State Street across groups, Citizenship wasn't necessarily working really closely with workforce development or with talent acquisition on other sorts of projects, and recognizing the expertise that comes from collaborating outside of your work group and bringing in different perspectives can really take you to the next level. So I think the hard work is really worth it. But again, the shared goals, the shared outcomes have to be there for it to be sustained.
And Dan, I'd like to add, this is Richard, is the communication. It's important that we do communicate with each other when things are working and when they're not working, and being flexible in changing the approach when necessary. The WINS partners get together. We've got quarterly convenings that we do. There's a lot of subgroups that are working together, but we, even with each partner, they're looking at all of the other contributions that are coming into the organizations, but we try to bring them together as much as possible and discuss. Not everything's perfect, so having that adjustment period is necessary, but the communication, if we stop communicating, things aren't going to get better. They're going to stay the same, and sometimes that's negative. The other thing is celebration. We have to celebrate the accomplishments. When we get a positive feedback from the mentees, the mentors, and in this case, we do a lot of surveying. How did it go? What works? What didn't go? But when there is that success and feedback, it's good to celebrate with all of the partners, because it is a collaborative effort, like we've all said.
Richard, that actually tees up another question I have for you guys, which is, in the spirit of celebrating, can you guys talk a little bit about how you go about measuring the impact of the Boston WINS initiative? So what are some of those key success factors that you're looking to try to achieve through the program?
Well, I think one main one that we look at, and once again very selfishly, is the number of hires we're bringing in from these organizations, especially when we see that continuum from high school into college. We are starting to see that for those individuals that are going to non-4-year schools, even though we're 2 years only into the program. But when we see that continuum of individuals wanting to come back to State Street through their college, or they return even as a high school student. This year, with the 150 we're bringing in, about a third of them are returning, coming back to experience State Street again. So we look at that as a kind of a milestone as we go through, which will hopefully impact the future hiring of coming in, and the degree of satisfaction both on the intern side and, of course, the employees, but also the managers, because when they see that there is a firm pipeline of non-traditional talent coming to the organization and contributing towards that organization, we get feedback. We love to sometimes you think you only hear the negatives, but it's nice when you hear the positives, like, oh, I can't wait to have another PIC intern or another Year Up intern or anyone that they reference from any of our WINS partners coming in. That's a huge selling point for the program, and it's also a satisfaction point for the managers that are supporting the program.
That's great. Regina or Marty, anything you want to share in terms of how you look at success for an initiative like Boston WINS?
Sure, I can add something to that. So as far as measuring impact with youth in Boston, the foundation team is working on something that they're calling coordinated action. And so they're actually working in currently it's 20 of the Boston public high schools where they're partnering with the 5 WINS organizations in order to make sure that they reach every student with a certain set of expectations before they graduate high school. And the primary one being having a path, having a plan for once they graduate, whether that be a 4-year college, a 2-year college, a program like Year Up, or a job. And so each of the WINS organizations brings a little something different, whether it be financial advising or actually the college interview process, or whatever it might be, getting those last few credits they need to get. Each of the partners brings a unique piece to the table. And so what they're actually able to do is they have a database set up, and those 20 high schools, they're measuring how many employees are checking how many students are checking all of those boxes before they hit graduation, and they're already able to see that increase. And so the goal would be that every Boston public high school student is able to check those boxes before they graduate high school. And so that's one way we're able to measure success of the program.
That's incredible. I mean, I think it's a perfect example, too, of the impact of collaboration. So if you have multiple organizations all coming together and leveraging each other's expertise and strengths, you really can ensure that as many kids, if not all kids, are put on that path to success. And that where you see some kids maybe missing some of those check marks, you have a web of support around them to make sure that they get back on track and continue down that path to success. So that's a great example.
Sure. And the other thing that it does is, I was just going to make one more quick comment, is it really forces all of the participants, including State Street, to work in that collaborative manner, because it can't be a competition at that point. It has to be, what is it that I bring to the table that no one else does that will help each and every student, versus sort of overlapping services. They really have to be sort of understanding what each other brings to that equation.
Absolutely. I want to just acknowledge we're coming down on time for today's session, but before I transition to sharing just a few additional resources from Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, that you all could leverage as part of either expanding your current initiatives in youth mentoring, or if you're coming to today's session looking to get ideas for what you can create or what you can start in your community or your place of work, we have some additional resources we'd love to highlight and also give you the contact information for today's presenters. But I just want to say a huge thank you first and foremost to Regina, Richard, and Marty for not only participating as panelists today and sharing your story and the work that you're doing in Boston, but also for the example that you're setting. I had the opportunity to work with lots of different companies around youth mentoring, youth development initiatives, and I think particularly with the Boston WINS example, you've managed to not only facilitate collaboration and be a part of collaboration outside of State Street, but you've also been able to facilitate that type of collaboration inside the company as a perfect example between employee engagement, corporate citizenship, and human resources, and just thinking about the power that can play into when you're thinking about shared vision for your community investments, shared vision for your HR strategy in terms of how you're attracting, how you're retaining talent, how you're meeting diversity and inclusion goals. All of those things can be achieved in partnership. And so I just want to applaud recognizing that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort and intentionality. It's so important. Somebody used the words earlier on in today's session about the web of relationships, sort of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together to ensure that kids have exactly what they need to move forward and in that path of success. And so I just want to again say a huge thank you for the intentionality, the strategy that you've put behind the Boston Wins model. It certainly is an incredible example for other companies and for other communities across the country. With that, I want to just transition real quick to highlight a few additional resources from Mentor. So again, if you are interested in tapping into more case studies, more examples of what others are doing to bring back to your work, there's a few places where you can access it. One is the online philanthropic community of practice. So Mentor facilitates an online portal for corporations, foundations, and donors to connect and share resources. It's where we post the latest research in youth mentoring, the latest examples of what companies of all different industries, all different sizes and geographies are doing in their youth mentoring initiatives and programs. And it also, in the platform, enables you to connect with other colleagues from other companies and post questions and gather people's input around the work that you're trying to do. The Mentoring Connector is another fantastic resource. It's a national database of mentoring opportunities where you can search by the type of mentoring program or the zip code. It really is a tool that you could leverage if you're a company. You could leverage within your organization on your intranet and encourage your employees who are looking for volunteer opportunities to search that Mentoring Connector and see what types of mentoring opportunities exist right in their own backyard. The National Mentoring Resource Center is also it's a national clearinghouse of tools, resources, practices, everything from research to activity ideas to blogs from expert practitioners in the field where you can post questions and ask for advice. So it's, again, a great resource if you're in that mentoring space as a mentor or as somebody who's facilitating or coordinating a mentoring program. In addition to this Impact webinar series, which we just launched last month, we also have a collaborative mentoring webinar series that's offered every month, the third Thursday of every month. And that really is for practitioners, by practitioners. And so either one of these webinar series, again, are great resources for you to hear how we're taking theory and putting it into practice in communities across the country. We also have the National Mentoring Summit, which takes place in the winter timeframe, January, early February every year. We've built out a philanthropic partnerships track now. We're really engaging over 1,000 practitioners, philanthropic partners, researchers. It's a great place for people to come together and really troubleshoot the challenges that we're all facing, celebrate the successes, and learn about some of the innovation that's taking place as well. And then last but not least is the Guide for Mentoring Boys and Young Men of Color is a fairly new resource that Mentor has published that builds upon the elements of effective practice for mentoring. And it's a great resource that a lot of our companies are asking for and are able to leverage now in both the training of their mentors, their employees, who are stepped up to support young people, but also in terms of us just thinking about our overall program design. And so just to leave you not only with our contact information, we certainly welcome any questions, any feedback that you might have in regards to today's session or the Impact series in total. If you have ideas for future sessions, we're always open to hearing those. We also wanted to make you aware of our next session for May. It's going to be taking place on May 17th at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. It's featuring Bank of America, and the focus here is really how we can best support managers who are serving as mentors to young people in the workplace. And so that session is going to be designed specifically for managers to jump on the webinar and to learn some of the effective practices in their work. We'll also be able to distribute a supplemental guide that will support employees serving as mentors for youth in your companies. And you can register at the link that's provided here. Last but not least is just letting everybody know that today's slides as well as the recording from today's sessions will be available on the mentoring site, and you'll get an email following today's session with a brief survey asking for your input and directing you to where you can access the recording if you want to go back and listen to any of parts of it or access the slides. So with that, again, I just want to say a huge thank you to Regina, Richard, and Marty. Thank you guys so much for sharing your story, lending us your expertise and your advice. We definitely appreciate your time today on today's session.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, have a great day, and we'll be in touch soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.